Welcome to In the Lantern. I spilled my drink.
There's napkins behind you.
I'll be fine. I'm sorry, by the table.
It's okay.
Hi everyone. Welcome to a podcast by the In the Lantern. This is the first episode of hopefully many. We're here to tackle situations that the Indonesian community and just the Asian community in general face. We're three Indonesian American living in Philly, trying to get by, and I feel like there's a lot for us to talk about. There's a lot to unpack. I'm sure there's things that you guys wish you could talk about out loud that many are just kind of brushing off. Specifically, the topic of today's episode, mental health. I know that's a very, very tough topic, especially amongst the Asian community. So what do you guys think about just mental health in general as being an Asian American?
Definitely needs to be spoken about more. Therapy needs to be promoted more. I think there's a big stigma in seeking therapy, and a lot of, I guess, immigrant families may think like, if I go to therapy, like there's something wrong with me. Like, nope. Everybody just needs to talk to someone every now and then. So you need to go to therapy.
Well, I think it's very important for us to kind of introduce ourselves a bit, get to know who we really are. My name is Lumintang. I was born in Indonesia, but all my life I've been here in Philadelphia, so I've kind of understand what it's like to be just growing up Asian in a very like demographically white community. We are the minorities, even in the minorities, if that makes sense at all. So tell me about your upbringings, guys, like what it's like for...
Okay, I'm Rania, Bakhri, born and raised in Philly to two Indonesian American immigrants. I'm 21 and I'm currently a student at Temple University, and mental health is definitely a topic that I'm very passionate about because I honestly started therapy last year, and I think that it made such a difference in just the way that I view life. And I think that if we were able to promote that kind of idea to a lot of Asian American youth, that it could truly make a difference. So
we have a lot of actually different demographics. I mean, like I was not born here, but I grew up here. You were born here.
I was also born here, but I grew up like going to Indonesia every summer, so it kind of feels like I was raised both in Philly and like Indonesia, more specifically Jakarta, but also like generally because I visit a lot of family members growing up in Indonesia, I think mental health is definitely I think specifically like for Muslim Indonesians, they just say pray it away, and it's like that's their therapy, but for people who don't have maybe Islam or like other religions to fall back on, therapy is definitely I'm a big advocate for. Also, I'm a psychology major at Drexel, so I definitely talk about this a lot in class, and like I worked at a mental health clinic, Joseph J. Peters Institute, shout out, but it's just mental health encompasses a lot of aspects of my life, and I'm glad we're talking about it today.
How does the mental health affect you growing up? Let's start with Rania, because I feel like...
Okay, let's see. I feel like growing up, like my family wasn't very well off, so there were already like a lot of kind of disadvantages that already take a toll on like both my mental health and my parents' mental health. And I think especially when it comes to just language, I know for me, I'm fluent basically in Indonesian, so I didn't have difficulty talking to my parents, but even like expressing my feelings to them was always something that I was so hesitant on and scared to do. But I know for a lot of Asian American youth that don't speak like their parents' language, it's like that's not even an option to even try to explain to them what you're feeling. And I know that even like Indonesian or like any Asian languages, it's like you can't even find the language to explain like the things that you're going through. So that's like already such a big kind of barrier between your parents. Yeah. So I think that's one main thing.
You know, hearing all this, it kind of reminds me of like the topic of identity. Obviously, all of us have different upbringings. I wasn't born here; these two were. So I'm sure there's different privileges of being born in Indonesia and being born here. I want to know what it's like being an Indonesian that's not born in here, like not born in Indonesia, and then I'll give you my perspective what it's like coming from, So we can start with Farah.
I think definitely the opportunities, just even college, like my brother couldn't even do FAFSA, and so he got into his school. Well, okay.
Oh, your brother wasn't born.
Yeah, he was born in Egypt. Sorry, context.
What?
He was born in Egypt because my mom went to school in Egypt, and boop, like my brother was born. And then
That's really cool.
yeah, and then they came over here, and he got into NYU, but he couldn't go because it was too expensive, and FAFSA couldn't cover it because he's not an American citizen.
So technically he's not an Indonesian citizen either.
He's an Indonesian citizen actually because his parents.
Because his parents are.
Yeah. So
Gotcha.
I think that's how it works, the law. So yeah, and.
But how does it affect you growing up?
So I just feel like I've been more privileged in some ways. Like we. I don't know if this is a little personal, but we were on food stamps growing up because we were poor, and it was on my name. Well, my mom could only get it because I was an American citizen, and so if I wasn't, like, I don't know how we would have survived. So it's definitely like America treats like their citizens better, or like they prioritize them and just give them more rights, I guess. Like in some ways than maybe non-U.S. born.
Right.
Yeah.
But you said that you would often go back and forth to
Yeah.
Indonesia. How do they treat you back home?
Oh, they definitely treat me like a spectacle. Like they're like, oh, you're from America. Like every time, I try not to speak English, like, because I'm like, they treat me so differently when they know I'm from here.
Yeah.
And
That's same
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
When I say that I'm not from Indonesia, they literally just go, "Oh, we could tell." Like you didn't even have to tell.
What
us.
is that?
And I'm just like,
What does that even mean? We can tell.
I think it's because one person said that is because I was like too confident. Because the way like I walked around, like they could just tell. I didn't even know what that meant.
That's so interesting.
Maybe because like I don't know. I feel like a lot of Indonesian/Asian people are just so like relaxed. Like they kind of just like la di da. I don't know, but maybe I was just like so fast and just like storming through. People were like, "What's up with her?"
But I feel like it's like more city.
Yeah,
like,
I don't know. Yeah, true.
You guys are more city?
No, I mean like being fast is like a city
It's like a
aspect.
city. It's not really like a.
American
Maybe because
thing.
this is
I
in
just
like
burped.
Purwokerto, like Central Java,
Yeah.
which is very different from like Jakarta, or like a really big city. So people probably just weren't used to that. And on top of that, I do have an accent. Like you literally told me that when I speak Indonesian, I have an
She has
accent.
a really thick accent. It's like insane.
Interesting.
Well, it's just funny, right? Because like I also had a very thick accent, but then I wasn't born here. I was born in Indonesia, so there's kind of a little bit more pressure, expecting like how are you born in Indonesia and not have, are you not fluent in Indonesian? Like, so I brought up identity because that is a big part of my mental health, how I'm treated in both sides. I feel like it's kind of like a tug and pull, push and pull, where in Indonesia I'm not really accepted in a way.
Yeah.
I'm different.
Yeah.
And then here, well, no, it's a given. I'm definitely different. Like, I wasn't born here. I don't look like the people that are from here.
Yeah.
So that's what I kind of like brought up the topic of identity. So like, how does that make you feel, and how does that affect your mental health?
It's hard. Like just always being slightly different than everyone else. It's like you're never really like. I mean, obviously people are nice and they're not gonna like hate you outright unless they're weird. But
Occasionally it does happen.
yeah. But I don't know. It's just like. I don't know how it's impacted my mental health, to be honest. Like,
I can say I don't know if you can relate, but like if
Well,
you go
was
to
this ever a thing you guys thought about? Like just
yeah.
identity? Of course.
yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
But I just think like, especially when I go to Indonesia, because I started to go to Indonesia every year since like 2016. So 2016 to 2022, and then or 2023. Oh my god. And then I went for the first time in 2013. And I remember when I went, it's like because here we're Indonesian. At least we're Indonesian and Muslim, which is already like two minorities.
yeah.
But then in the Indonesian community itself, there's way more Indonesian Christians than Indonesian Muslims. So that community is already so small, and like you already feel so isolated. But then in Indonesia, you're part of the majority because you're Indonesian and Muslim. But then like you're not Muslim enough because I don't wear the hijab. So my mom and I are the only people that don't. So it's so obvious that people don't think of us as like strictly Muslim. But then here we're like so strictly Muslim compared to other people. So for me personally, it was also like more to like religion, because I'm like, I feel like a lot of my values are like rooted in my religion and how I was raised. But then it's not good enough for some people, or it's like too much for other people. So just trying to find that like balance is so hard, and I know that we've talked about it a lot.
I literally made a separate Instagram because I used to wear the hijab, and then like I was scared of my family members finding out that I didn't wear it in America, so I created a Finsta, and then it became my like real Insta that I just use, and I don't wear my hijab, and like that's the kind of like duality like that I don't know like I think Islam brings. It feels like I have to like appease like two different demographics, like my family and people here, so it's tough. It's really tough.
You mentioned your parents too. You guys mentioned that a lot, actually. So I want to kind of like tackle about how different your parents are. Mainly because I think a lot of times in the Asian community, we either have very traditional parents or we have, you know, what you would consider a westernized. Is that a good way to say it? Westernized, you know, parents, and I think those really affect us as just growing up in a different demographic. Would you guys consider you guys had westernized parents or traditional parents?
No, we had traditional AF parents, like the most traditional you could get. I mean, no, actually,
Definitely not like 100%. Like everything's kind of like on a spectrum.
Yeah.
I feel like
some more
Western and like more Indonesian. Like our parents were definitely like leaning here. Like
More
we're not in
to-
the middle.
Yeah.
Right, but obviously there's things that, you know, that differentiate you guys very well, very much.
Like us as an
No, you and your parents.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think I grew up more liberal. Like
Okay.
I feel like there are still like some traditional values I have, but then like I think I'm more veering towards like Western. I don't know. The more I live here, the more I feel like I'm being indoctrinated. Like it's like I'm betraying my people. No, I'm kidding.
Right.
Let me stop. But yeah, it's.
But
yeah.
Rania, I feel like your parents though, you and your mom, I feel like you guys are almost
Yeah,
at the
we're
same
really
level,
similar.
like compared to Farah, I feel like you guys are
We're
two different sides
Yeah.
of the coin.
We're different.
Whatever metaphor you guys want. Sorry, I'm not
Yeah.
good with those. But how does that affect the topic of mental health? The only reason why I brought it up is because most of the traditional family members, traditional Asian parents, I think mental health doesn't even exist
Yeah.
to them. It doesn't really. I mean, mental health is not really a thing.
Yeah.
Like, your parents, I know you guys are. That's why I really wanted to contrast this because how does your parents see mental health?
First, I'm gonna say I admire your mom because she is becoming more like open towards therapy, and that's something my mom like never really got. And I think she kind of got a little bit later, like when I was in therapy. Like she was like, okay, I see, like you need it, blah blah. But before that, she was like, just pray, like just pray. And then I remember I was talking to my dad about being stressed, and he was like, just pray. And I stopped. Because of
Stress.
Because of life in
Masuk
school.
angin. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, but like, and I stopped talking to him like, honestly after that because I just couldn't deal with, I don't know, the stress of life of trying to survive here, but also having him like, kind of judge me for not being as religious. The consistent like difference or like conflict you have in like values sometimes with your parents like. Makes you feel more lonely. That's it. Like it makes you feel like okay, like I'm on my own. Like they don't get it. Like I have to figure this out on my own. And it's like you can lean on your friends, but obviously like it would help if your parents were on the same page.
I think a lot of people our age watching that are going through the same things we are, like under an Asian household. I think majority can say they are from a traditional family, but what is it like from someone that's not as traditional as most Asian families are?
I would say for my mom, not really my dad, but definitely my mom, she is like more Western when it comes to certain things and like traditional when it comes to like other things. Like when it comes to anything with like religion.
There's also that Indonesian pride.
Yeah.
You know?
Like especially when it comes to like health and like like health and like certain values, you kind of lean to like more cultural and religious like things. But then when it comes to mental health, she definitely has been like really supportive because I think for me, when I said that I wanted to get a therapist, she was very supportive, and I emphasized that I wanted specifically an Asian woman because it was my first like therapist, and I wanted it to be like a good experience, and then like from that I can like alter and see what I want. And she was really supportive, and the like counsel. What is it? Like
Counsels for a relationship?
No, like the
Mango Tree?
Mango
Yeah.
Tree. It's like the consulting firm, like the therapist firm.
We have no association with these companies whatsoever.
Okay.
Just want to make that clear.
Yeah. That I get my therapy from like a specific like therapist group that only has like Asian like therapists, and for me that worked out really well. And my
we
mom.
do take sponsors if anyone's willing.
Please.
Sorry.
Okay.
That goes back.
Please. Yeah.
But my mom was very like supportive, which was nice. And I know for my mom, like, I guess she has tried talking about like therapy to other Indo moms, and a lot of Indo moms like do not take it. Like they're not really open to it.
No.
Like you would think that they would be, but then they're like, why do you need a therapist? Like it's really not necessary. Like our girls are fine. But like obviously like your parents only see like so much of you. Like they don't really understand you 100%, which is obvious. Like no one really understands you that much. But like to say something so far as to like, oh, like they're fine, like they don't need a therapist. Like you don't really understand how things have affected your child, especially like through childhood.
Yeah.
So for me, especially for therapy, like I was reflecting a lot on things that were happening like from when I was a child, not even like a lot of things that are happening now. So I think that was the main thing.
I think we also have to look in retrospect of how our families or our parents grew up, the time that they were in, like the years, like the generation that they were in. It's a lot different. I'm sure when in the future, if we were to ever have kids, they would, maybe in the future there would be more solutions to these things that we're not accustomed to, and maybe we won't accept it just as fast as they would. At the end of the day, it's also generational trauma. I think it very much plays a big role in how, at the end of the day, I think we hold our parents in such a high regard that we think that like they should understand. Like, why don't they understand us? They should understand us, right? But at the end of the day, they're humans too. They have their imperfections, and they take time just as much as we need to take time to understand other people. We have difficulties understanding other people ourselves, so especially a different generation. I think your mom, I think does a very good job. I think she like, for someone that has a tradition and kind of like this upbringing that she had, she's still very open. I think openness is a very difficult thing for most people, for most adults and elderlies, and
like immigrant.
Exactly. Immigrants, especially new country, new generation. It's hard, you know. So I try to take that in retrospect. Of course, how do you think we can kind of introduce this to a generation that's just not used to mental health in general?
What a loaded question. I think there was a program where like I forgot where I read somewhere where it was like a workshop or something targeted towards immigrant parents to give them the vocabulary to like understand mental health issues, like and like translate it in their language, and also just explaining it in their language, because I think some mental health like terminology, like maybe even like depression or anxiety, like don't have a word, or like don't have a translation literally. So just making that and like defining it so they understand is like the first step. But I think there are people or things out there that are trying to do it, but we need to make it more, I don't know, accessible.
Especially for like Indonesian specifically, I feel like it's like hard to find things that are specific for a community.
Yeah, because we're so small.
Yeah.
I know this is really random, but you guys watch that new movie Everything Everywhere All at Once?
Yes.
Oh, I love that movie.
I'm sorry, I took forever. You know, that movie, such a good movie. But what's funny is that like the whole plot is just to basically get the mom to understand generational trauma. And I feel like, why can't my mom go through an interdimensional journey for her to understand me? I'm wondering if I'm ever gonna need to understand my kid through a multi-dimensional journey for me to understand my kids, because sometimes it's just that difficult.
Yeah, I think that film depicts so well like how difficult it is to like just get your mom to understand the bare minimum. Like it's like this visual representation of like the
and even
shit
then
you have
it's
to go
difficult, right?
Yeah, and even then she kind of understands, but not really. Like at the end.
At the end, she doesn't even fully understand.
Yeah.
At the end, she tries to accept it because she is reminded of the things that she had to go through with her dad.
Yeah.
Which is, I feel like, you guys as girls with moms.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure there's some big relations to that too, because I think the dynamics between the son and mom or son and dad is different from mom and dad. I mean, it's daughter and dad, and daughter and mom. What is that like?
The theme in the movie is also like a lot of unconditional love.
Yes.
Like it's like regardless of like how much like her daughter was the bad guy in her eyes, like she still couldn't like do anything to harm her because like she just loved her so much. And I think for a lot of like Asian kids, like even though like we like think we're getting so annoyed by our parents and our parents like yell at us and scold us, there's always that kind of feeling of unconditional love. And like a lot of times like people will like your parents will try to understand. But yeah, it's like super hard because like they have no idea, like at the same time they're also like living life for the first time. Like they have no idea how our lives are, and we also don't really understand theirs. So I think just trying to understand like your child the best that you can, and trying to just have a really open conversation, I think would probably be the best to start off.
There is this frustration also of like trying, like I said, I'm always trying to place myself in my parents' my mom's shoes, my grandmother's shoes, because that's by the way the ones that raised me. I grew up with my grandmother, and I tend to sometimes realize they get a little bit what's the word? You know, when you're like you make things sound bigger than it actually was. You know, like because they have difficulty trying to get it through us. Like, you know, for example, I remember watching this like stand-up comedian just like saying like his mom used to walk to school, where he's complaining about waiting for the bus, yada yada yada. But then his mom's like, I would have to walk 5,000 miles. Like, you know what I mean? Like they would kind of make things sound bigger than it is because there's this frustration of like my kids will never understand. So how do I make it sound like it's a big deal? We tend to do that just in generality. Like we tend to make, because like if we're telling a story to our friends that I'm sure they're not going to understand or they might not even believe, we try to make it sound bigger than it actually is. So I feel like our parents do that a lot. Like, you know, and it makes a lot of pressure on us because like damn, my mom had to take a tank to school. Like I gotta take a bus. Like, you know, like it's those kind of things. So I don't know. I feel like that puts a lot of pressure on me because like I can't complain about these things. I can't complain about waiting for the bus. I can't complain about nearly getting robbed in the subway because my mom was doing the robbing in those kind of like poverty, blah blah blah, whatever story she makes that like she's going through because like it's a lot. And maybe one day we'll have our struggle story. You know, like COVID lasted 70 years.
The root of that definitely is though like validation. And since they didn't get that validation from their parents, they want it from their kids. But for us, we obviously want it from our parents. But then since our parents didn't get that, we're like going back and forth. And it's kind of like, I don't know. It's like this never-ending thing of validation. And I think for me, when I went to therapy, the most important thing for me was that like my feelings were valid. Like all these things that happened in the past, like can actually be resolved. Can be resolved because like I wasn't crazy for feeling this way. Like my feelings were valid, and now like I can move on with the rest of my life without having to like dump that on my kids or on my family. And I think that's honestly the root of it. Like even for our parents, like if they're just like even if you're just the one to be like, oh, like that sucks that you had to go through that. Like I feel like they would be so like relieved. Like it's just like validation. I feel like.
I'm glad you brought that up. So we can actually kind of discuss about how therapy is effective. So I think we've all three of us here has gone through therapy, and we have our positives and our negatives. Obviously, it's not always going to be a perfect system, but the whole point is to try to find that perfect system for you specifically. Everybody's different, but that's the point. And we want to, like, that's the point of they want to get through to you. They want to get to know you as a person. And I think, so what are you? Tell me your experiences.
Oh, okay, so it's funny. Okay, so you mentioned like Asian therapists, but actually like the best therapist I had was a white woman. And I think I've mentioned this or talked about this before, but I started out with a Korean therapist. She kind of gave me like coping mechanisms for like my anxiety, or like, she said I had anxiety, but it was my first session with her, and I was like, I don't think I have anxiety. Like I was just like, what? And it wasn't really what I needed. I just needed her to listen to me. And then that kind of fell through, and then I had a black therapist after that. And then I remember her laughing because I said, like, I didn't want to date anyone in the Muslim community, and she was like, oh yeah, like, I have another client, and they said the same thing about, like, the Christian community. I was like, first of all, why would you share that? Like, that's confidential. And then two, like, I don't know how I feel about you laughing about, like, this thing that I'm, like, sharing. Like, I want you to take this seriously. And then the third one was a white woman. So those two were from BetterHelp, the first two, and then I tried counsel. No association. Maybe it works for some, but
for now, unless you if you want.
We are not getting sponsored by BetterHelp. But for counsels for relationship, that was a white woman, and she was the one I had the most progress with. I unpacked so much about not even just like generational trauma, and like I don't know, like being a first generation, but also just like we talked about narcissism a lot. Like my dad's low-key a narcissist. Like that was more impactful than anything else I think in my life. Like not being like aside from being an Indonesian, but just with that mental health disorder that my dad like doesn't even know that he has, and like it's like shaped me and my family's entire life. So yeah, like I know that we're talking about Indonesian experience, blah blah blah, but like we also have to take into consideration like personality disorders, and like there's other factors of like psychological issues that go into like why we are the way we are. And
how it was pretty easy, right? Like kind of like switching. No, I'm not saying adjusting to those therapists, but like requesting it. Because I mean, like obviously, that the whole point of therapy is to make yourself feel comfortable expressing and sharing the things about yourselves. I think that's why therapists are very open to switching. Because me personally, I had the same deal. I had a white female therapist, and she was great at her job. She was very much certified to do what she does. But at the same time, not everybody is gonna fit. Not everybody's gonna like do well interacting with each other. There's some things that I feel like she couldn't understand in an Asian perspective. So that's why I requested an Asian therapist myself, and they're very open to that. That's the point. They want to help us. And I think it's a very important thing to keep in mind for people that are just hesitant to go for therapy. Rania, what's yours like? What's your experience like?
I think for my therapist, my Asian therapist, she was really good at listening, and I think that's what I needed. I don't know, going into therapy for the first time, you honestly don't know like what you want. Like it's really hard. Like you have to like really dissect. I would say like if you're going into therapy or you're interested, you have to be like, oh, do I want people to like help me solve the problem or like validate things from the past? Like for me, I realized I just wanted like that to mostly for things to be validated that have happened in the past, and then like from then on, like I can talk about like anything I'm struggling with like now, but they just kind of help you a little like just with managing stress and like how to cope. And I think for me, like I said before, the validation was honestly the most important thing for me, and this was like last year. Like I started in July last year, and it's January now, so it's only been like not even a year, like under 6 months. So that alone has been really helpful, and just listening to her. She also like had like some input because she also the daughter of immigrants, and I was like, okay, like, and she's like older than me, so it was nice to kind of have her like say that she experienced something similar. And she also kind of says some things about not like specifically her clients, but she always just says like just the Asian diaspora, we struggle a lot with trying to express our feelings to our parents because of the language barrier, and there not being like a translation for things. And as Asians, apparently like we hold a lot of stress like physically in our body. So like for every time she would ask me like, oh, like if I'm trying to make a decision, she's like, which one, like did your body flinch or like did your body react? Because that honestly is telling you like what you're more comfortable with in a sense. And yeah, I think her just being really well versed on like Asian American issues and just like Asian issues helps me a lot personally. But yeah, that doesn't have to be the case if you're Asian, obviously.
Right. Well, now we're gonna kind of dive into topics that's a little bit. It's a difficult topic to talk about, but I wanted to ask you guys first if you ever lost someone to suicide, or if you ever knew about someone. You don't need to get into specifics, but like tell me what the experiences is like. And even if yourself, if you want to talk about it, if you guys ever like kind of, been into that area of like considering suicide or ever had that idea inside your head?
My best friend was very suicidal. Like, she would, I don't know, mention it very casually sometimes. I think one time I cried in front of her because I was like so upset that she felt that way, and she literally felt nothing at that. Like, and I think, okay, when you're in that space, like, I think you have so much pain in your life that it doesn't, even though you love your friends or whatever, but you feel like there's, I don't know, that's just the only way to like escape the pain. And yeah, but
do you
it's
agree?
tough. No, I think there's always a solution. I feel like, I mean, maybe this is just me being positive, but I feel like there's
Obviously,
always a way.
everybody's gonna have different.
Yeah, everyone has a different life, and I don't know everyone's issues, but I always feel like there's a way. And I think that's one of the things about Islam that I like, or commend in a way, because in Islam, suicide is a sin. Like, you'll go to hell if you go to like commit suicide, and I think that's just a way to like prevent people from like committing suicide. But also, like, Islam has coping mechanisms. Like, praying is a way, like it's meditation in some ways. Like, and then there's I think, what is it? There was like that video that mentioned how the way we pray is like a good way like to keep the blood flowing, and like it's good for like your health, like it's just like scientifically proven. And so like I get that, like that's people's coping mechanisms, like religion, and but some people don't have that, and so they just feel like there's no purpose to anything. I don't know, it's like a complex topic, because yeah, I know people like that. I've been close with people like that, and it's tough, and you love them so much, but also like they can't like see it through your eyes, like only they can save themselves.
Thank you for sharing, by the way, because I mean, this is a very tough topic.
Yeah.
If you guys don't mind me sharing about I had a cousin who I lost to suicide. It was very difficult, because of course, losing someone you love is very difficult, but not being able to understand why is one of the most difficult things for me. And what makes it even more sadder is when you start to kind of understand in the future why. Because growing up in a very traditional family myself, I think that the traditional mindset was kind of engraved in me as a child growing up. So when I lost my cousin to suicide, I didn't really understand why he did it. There were moments of myself where I thought he was weak, and I wish that like maybe I could have done something, maybe I could have stopped it, or maybe he could have been stronger. But the more I realized, the more I understood about mental health and its existence, I think it made me understand why my cousin did what he did. He was under a lot of medication. He was clinically diagnosed with a very mental illness. I can't really get into specifics, but the medications itself, it really didn't help his mood. I think it just kind of placed him into a breaking point, and he jumped off our 4-story apartment. And I was coming home from school when his body was there, and I was in shock, but I really couldn't understand why he did what he did until I was older. And I think that is one of the most important things about understanding mental health, is because not only can we understand ourselves, we can understand other people as well. I think because we don't understand, most people don't believe in mental health, we don't tend to take it seriously. We don't tend to take the ones that are going through, like, depression and etc., that seriously, and that's why it's so brushed off. I want to bring up statistics, because I know we hate numbers, but I think it's very important to talk about.
I don't hate numbers.
According to the American Psychological Association, Asian American college students had a higher rate of suicidal thoughts, and a higher rate than white college students. The reason why I brought this up is because under this topic of suicide, you guys are college students, or about to not be college students. You guys are graduating soon. I don't know when. I'm old. I'm way older than them. But tell me what it's like being, because it also says that girls have a higher rate as well. But that's why I think this is a very like, you know, on board subject for you guys?
Just a comment about the girls thing. I have a theory or hypothesis, or it just might be a factor that goes into that is probably sexual assault. Like, because like in college girls, like
Oh, it's definitely there.
yeah.
It's definitely that
And
definitely plays a big factor, I think.
Yeah, and just being a woman in general, like in this society, like it's hard and like.
Yeah, tell me more about that. Like, not only from the things you see, but just by yourself, if you don't mind sharing.
Well, I guess like not being able to stay out late, or just always like having to be on guard, or I don't know, just like fearing for my safety, you know, like almost all the time, like and not to say that like guys can't be kidnapped or but it's also like like the what is it, the risk of being sexually assaulted like is also there, like so yeah, I don't know, like
what about you, Rania?
I don't know. I think it's the same for me.
What school do you go to?
Temple.
Temple, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, like Drexel, Temple, it's a very, I would say, up there in like
stress,
stress,
pressure,
yeah. So not only on the girls' topic, but also as an Asian American, which is one of the biggest, you know, subtopics we're talking about. How do you think that affects it?
I don't know, because for me, I think the reason, like, going to a big public university, I feel like in the eyes of Asian parents, is like you can be seen as a disappointment because it's not like an Ivy League.
Yeah.
So I feel like that already kind of ruins your.
So expectations.
Yeah. Like.
Plays a big part.
Yeah. Like I think that I didn't even want to go to an Ivy League, but like the fact that I like didn't get in / didn't go, like I just feel like it's not even like a disappointment because I didn't like believe in myself. It's more so like I wish that I could have like gone just to like make my parents happy.
Yeah.
But like I'm an engineering student, so I feel like regardless of where I went, it kind of would have been difficult. But I think, I don't know, just feeling that like guilt, like even now, just like sucks.
No,
I feel like.
on the flip side, like going to a private school, I have wanted to drop out. You guys know this. I've been wanting to drop out for so long. Like, not even like, it's just like a continuous like thing, like thought in the back of my head. Like, why the frick am I doing this? And a part of it is like parental validation. Like, so my parents can say that their daughter went to Drexel, and it's just like, I don't know. Like, sometimes I wish I went to Temple so that the stress. Like, I feel like Temple students are at least less stressed than Drexel students. Because the quarter system at Drexel. It's definitely
the quarter system.
Yeah, it sucks. Like, the co-op is great, and you get job experience, but that you can also get that with the internship. But anyways, I don't regret anything, but also, it's a lot.
For me, also, it's crazy because I think I went into like my freshman and sophomore year, and I'm a senior now, and I like kind of went in like being so disappointed in myself going to Temple, because also my high school is right next to Temple. So everyone's like, oh, like you're too smart to go to Temple. People would literally tell me, you're too smart to be there, like you're wasting your time, essentially. And I literally was like, that is so disrespectful.
Yeah.
You have no idea what's going on. Like Temple was also like the most affordable school for me. Like I was also leaning towards going to Syracuse or Lehigh, but I ended up going to Temple just out of like convenience, and I want to be in Philly.
Yeah.
And I don't know, people's reactions did not help. And it's crazy because my junior and senior year now, I like love Temple so much. Like I would not want to have gone to like another school when I think about it. Like I don't know, like I just really enjoy the faculty that I've worked with and just the environment. Like I know a lot of people have different experiences, but I also commute, so I don't live on campus. But I don't know, I feel like I wasted so much of like my happiness in my like previous years by thinking that like I was a big disappointment rather than just like being proud of
It's
wherever
always
you are
like
in life.
external people who don't know your life, like making you feel bad about your life.
It can be people internal too, like your parents. Like
Yeah.
even though they're in it, they don't necessarily understand the things going on outside. I'm not a citizen here, and I'm not a citizen myself, so I don't really get FAFSA. I don't get financial aid like everybody else. So I kind of had to pay for college or like attending college myself. So in by itself, there's things that we cannot control that affects how we see ourselves. Like, you know, I'm working. I try to work every single day in the hopes that one day I can afford college. But there's moments where I think, do I want to go to college for myself, or do I want to go to college for validation? And that affects my mental health big time, because like it doesn't become about me anymore. It becomes about somebody else. And I think a big part of my mental health and my issues with mental health is I don't really think for myself anymore. I I start to think about what everybody else wants, what everybody else expects of me, and that just drives me into a spiral.
That's definitely also like the difference between like Eastern collectivism and like Western individualism. Because even for me, I was just talking to like my family, like, oh, when I graduate, I'm getting the first job I can take. Like, I kind of don't care. Like, as long as I'm obviously making a reasonable amount. And my mom was like, why would you do that? Like, you're so young, you want to explore your options. But I think it's for me, like, when I go to Indonesia, it's not even a vacation. Like, it's like I feel so mentally drained.
I feel like a diplomat.
And
I'm like, oh, yeah.
I get so sad just seeing the quality of life for, like, a lot of, like, my family members. And I just feel so privileged to, like, live the life. And I, like, almost feel guilty because I'm like, I just feel so bad. And it's to the point where it's like, I just want to make a decent amount of money so I can help my family in Indonesia and, like, improve their lives. Because, like, you just want to be, like, selfless. And that, like, and every time I go to Indonesia, I'm reminded of that. And, like, I just think about that for, like, the whole month that I'm there. And it low-key drains me so much. But
that's how I felt at Disney. I was like, all of this is amazing, but like I am like my mom is going through stuff, like my family is going through stuff. Like how can I enjoy myself and like it's just it was tough. Like, but yeah, same. I don't know.
Well, I really appreciate you guys being really open about this. I know it's not necessarily the easiest topic to talk about, but I mean this is what it's for. I mean our podcast is to kind of emphasize the struggles, the journey as an Asian American youth and beyond, and our journey to kind of just fit in, get by, etc. I mean, because in all by itself, we're not given the basic needs to thrive in this society. I don't think a lot of the minorities are. So it's nice to have a voice. It's nice to kind of be the voice. I think this is my first time being the voice for once, and I think it's very refreshing. How do you guys feel about kind of talking about it?
It's fun. I want to see how like people relate and stuff.
Me too.
Obviously, everybody's different, but that is the whole point of the mental health system, is to cater to everybody that is different. I think if everyone's the same, solutions would come all in abundance. But obviously, it'd be a boring-ass world too. So we're all different, but we try to accept each other for how we are, and we try to help each other for how we are. So before we end it off, because we're hitting our mark, I want to ask you guys, how do you think we can approach this mental health situation, especially with our parents, especially with people who are not familiar with like getting help and caring about mental health? How do you think we can approach this for the future? Like how we can change the minds of people who are new to this?
Education, to promote, like, I don't know, trying to make therapy more mainstream and acceptable. I think also just like, besides the mental health system, in your personal lives and everyone's personal lives, like find a support system, find good friends, like, because I feel like that makes a world of a difference. But yeah, I don't know.
Rania?
Yeah, I think just talking about like the translating thing, trying to like for parents, like trying to better understand your kid, trying to translate like these really hard like terms and concepts to your parents. And I'd say like if for like youth, it's okay to be selfish once in a while in certain cases. Like you don't want to like constantly put down your needs at the expense of others, because that is not like a healthy way to live your life. And I know for me, like that step was like going to therapy for the first time, and it made a really big difference. So.
And also at the end of the day, if we can't always try to force people that are not accustomed to things to believe in it. You know, we all have different beliefs. But what's best is that you think about what's best for you as an individual. And if you think therapy or, you know, just getting help in general is something you consider that might be a big help for you, I think you should take a step, you know, to think for yourselves. Who cares if that's what your parents think it's not the right thing, or if I'm saying this right. But the main thing is what you're doing for yourself and how you are taking care of yourself. And I think it was a big step for me to get help, to try to find help, reach out, and that even opened my eyes to seeing my friends who were calling for help, but not wanting to make it obvious, because there's a lot of people like that too, even myself. So, yeah.
Ending the cycle.
Yeah.
One
Breaking the wheel.
podcast at a time.
Breaking generational trauma.
Yeah.
Like Daenerys Targaryen. But yeah, thank you for tuning in. This is the first episode of many. Obviously, we don't really have a name for our podcast yet. This is just kind of like a little side project for our job for Interlantern. But this is something that we are passionate about. This is something that we really want to keep talking about, and we want to be the voice of the people of our generation the best we can. And so tune in. Hopefully we have more coming. I'm open for sponsors.
He's personally, not this podcast, in his personal life.
My Instagram below.
Oh my god.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Bye. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, share.